Okay, everybody, if we can just return to our seats, and Richard will get his piece underway. So, just if there's anyone who wants to leave early, we might have to sort of help you out the door, unlock the door, but see a vet. So basically you're locked in, so you can't get out, but there's plenty of food and drink, it'll be fine, don't worry. Yeah, so Richard, I'm really excited about what GIB are doing, and I think climate change is the biggest issue that is facing all companies, and in whatever sector, and it's really important to start the journey towards a low carbon world, basically. And so I'll hand over to Richard, and then at the end of Richard's talk, we're going to have a panel discussion, and I might just sort of cast my eye around and collar a couple of people to join us on the stage, maybe, because there's a lot of clever people and intelligent-looking people in this audience. And think about your questions. So we've already had some lively questions during the break, and that'll be an interesting opportunity to delve a bit deeper.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Bob. Like Bob, I'm also, well, I shouldn't say Bob's aging. I'm definitely aging, and so are my eyes, so hence my glasses, I'm just getting used to the fact that I've got to keep putting them on to be able to do these presentations. Thanks first to Tony and the City Council for having this tonight and allowing us all to be here. So I'm going backwards, I need to go forwards. This is always a good way to go in life. Right, excellent. So, Windstone Wallboards. We are the manufacturers of GIB plasterboard. We are the only manufacturers of plasterboard to supply the New Zealand market. You may have just recently seen in the newspaper and in the TV that Windstone Wallboards, or Fletchers, who own Windstones, have allowed us, or given us permission to build a new plant in Tauranga, which is about to start now. And of course it's going to be incorporating everything to do within the green movement, and it's going to allow us to create so much more capacity, and we're investing somewhere in the vicinity of $460 million in producing that, or manufacturing that new plant for us in Auckland. Of course the 460 is at the beginning of the building, so it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of it. Fletcher building, I believe, are actually building it for us. That was a bit of a rude dig, wasn't it? Right, so here we go. How do I, on my screen here?
You can use the mouse or the arrows.
It's working. Mouse is up there.
Yeah, no, it's on my screen I'm trying to,
Okay.
because I haven't got my presentation in front of me. One would say that I should know this off by heart and I wouldn't have to refer to my notes.
You've broken it.
I haven't done anything. All right, I'll do it from here in the meantime, just while they figure this out. Forgive me, I'm actually on leave at the moment, and I haven't actually come to work yet this year. So I've had the last 3 months off on long service leave and a little bit else. So I really are going from a little bit of memory, so please forgive me for that. So Windstone Wallboards, we're committed to improving our sustainability position within the marketplace here in New Zealand and abroad. We want to be a leader in making sustainable building products, in the environment footprint of our products, and also the customer engagement and waste management. We are wanting to have careful management of our resources and our emissions. One of the things that you may have noticed in the past, whenever there's anything shown on Christchurch and our smog, there's always seemed to be one picture that always comes up on the TV, and it's of our chimney stacks putting all of that steam into the air, and it's actually been called pollution. It is steam, it is not pollution, just for our own peace of mind.
Sorry, just give me a second. Sorry.
No, that's all right, I can still talk. So the resources we use as a large manufacturer, very simple: energy, water, and material. We support our people and our community.
Yes. Sorry, come back. Away.
Good.
You can come back now.
Thank you. Through the health and safety and well-being of our people. We also partner with the supply chain and sustainable outcomes with marketing and communications. And we're of course working with the government, local government bodies, and always trying to improve our product and what the market is wanting to do and what the councils are wanting to try and do. Again, you know, working with the GIBFix framing system that Bob was talking about earlier, and those type of things. We're trying to be innovative. And of course, transparent, environmental, social and governance reporting and our own risk management. Have I got that back on the
On the
screen?
mouse, though. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's great. Quite like being up here at the moment. And then, of course, we want to have customer engagement and contribute to building healthy homes, which, of course, is one of our biggest things that everybody in the industry wants to do, is have a healthy home, because we certainly know what an unhealthy home looks like. Yeah, that's no problem. Perfect. Thanks very much. So, why is GIB plasterboard sustainable? Gypsum is a natural occurring product. It comes from dried up inland sea deposits. It's actually available. It's actually everywhere in the world, particularly in the main continents. We get ours from South Australia. Like a lot of other things from Australia that they have within their minerals, it's incredibly pure. In fact, it's one of the most purest gypsum that there is in the world. It's so unfair that they seem to get all of this wonderful stuff. We have little deposits of it here in New Zealand, but to make gypsum, you actually need to have old land, and New Zealand is in relatively new country, so therefore our gypsum is not designed, it's not really designated to be able to be used what we want it for. There's at least 1,000-year deposit here in this reserve that we are going to in Australia. And as I mentioned, it's a very common component in the Earth's crust. In the land application, New Zealand, our environmental fear, of course, is that urban landfills will overflow, if they haven't already started doing so. And sometimes we're afraid that new resource consent won't be opened up for new landfills areas, which has happened already offshore. Overseas waste plasterboard is being used as a filler in compost and direct application to the land. What do we mean by that? Well, we put it over the land to basically fertilise it. As it says there, not waste plasterboard, but gypsum, which is in the core ingredient of plasterboard, contains calcium and sulfur in a sulfate form. It is the only natural product in the world that contains both calcium and sulfate in that form. It's very, very plant ready. It's a wonderful product. It's also pH neutral, so it won't do anything to the soils. So, we already have some credentials. What happened there? Oh, okay, that didn't come up. Right, so, what's missing there? I'll just go past that. We have what we call the EPD, which is Environmental Protection Declaration. This is a Winstone Wallboards has been the first only in Australasia to be published with, or to publish an environmental product declaration. This, in an acronym form, EPD, quantifies the environmental performance of GIB plasterboard, including its carbon footprint, embodied energy and environmental data. Of course, we are, as I mentioned, we are the first to do this in Australasia, and products utilising the GIB plasterboard will qualify for the full Green Star rating points due to the fact that we have 6 or more products that can be put into this category. We also have a green tag certified on certain products of what we call our GIB standard, our Fireline board, which is what we use for fire rating, our brace line, which we use for bracing up the walls to stop them from lateral movement, also our wide line for higher stud walls, and also another product called Tough Line, which we use in a lot of social housing, and schools and hospitals and what have you. And we also have our Declare certificate as well, which of course is also for those same mentioned products, and that's all on the way of making us into green, or being allowed to be used in a Green Star rated house. We've engaged into prefabrication, minimising waste and contributing to faster, healthier homes in the construction. We tested our board rigorously. What we have there, the purple board on the right hand side, is put in a rig which we call a P21. I have not yet, after 13 years, still asked the question why it's called a P31. But that is a bracing rig, and it moves back and forth, and it actually goes to the point where it will shatter the board. We want to know what we can do with it and what it will take for lateral movement from an earthquake. And that other one on the left-hand side, the whiteboard there, that is actually just showing us how we can staple our plasterboard to a wall instead of using screws. So in a panelised form, we have it's all stapled on, still with glue, but we're taking out the screws. And part of the reason for doing that, of course, in panelisation form, is the speed, but also we are minimising the thoughts of screws coming out. So, why are we also active? We are also looking at, waste. So, one of the things that we want to do is we wanted to have a recovery of our plasterboard. Every time that you build a house, you generate plasterboard waste. Well, that's pretty obvious. What we have figured out, so Fletcher Building said, okay, we need to actually investigate that. So back in about 2008, the part of the Fletcher Building Leadership Foundation project said, let's look at the recovery waste on GIB. So we wanted to look at all these different things and how this could work. We basically went out and asked the market. We then did a trial back in 2010, which I was responsible for here in Christchurch. And essentially one of the core behind that trial was we wanted to see if we could actually recover plasterboard, process it, and turn a profit. To a certain point, not lose a great deal of money anyway. What we found from that was that we had a lot of contamination with all of our plasterboard that came back. Of the 14 skips that we were returned in a total of 1 month, we had 13 that were contaminated. It took us 20 to 30 minutes to actually go through and look at all of this and take it all out. End result, the contamination was damaging the machinery and the processing. It was an unacceptable finished product that was being produced due to that contamination. So what that really told us is that the market really needed to get on board with this. Statistics. Are you hearing me okay? Yeah, cool, right. So fact, for every sheet of GIB plasterboard, currently 85% of that is recovered as recycled gypsum and 15% is recovered as paper in gypsum. Now, if any of you were to come through our factory, and when I say if you were to, you are more than welcome to. We really do. I would love to have people come through for factory tours and see how we manufacture GIB plasterboard. And the first thing that you'll see is when we make it, we put a slurry over the paper, and then slurry plaster, and that adheres to the paper of the board. And then we put over the top of that the main slurry mix. So when you get a piece of plasterboard and you break it, fracture it, whatever, you will find that the core will fall away, but the paper will always have plaster adhered to it. And that's because of the way how we make it. So the paper at the moment, with what we recycle, that actually goes to someone like, what's their name? Hydroseeds. Hydroseed for grass. You're familiar with that? You know, you spray the grass, and it comes in that mulchy mix. A lot of that has paper from gypsum or from our board, and that is containing calcium and sulfur, so therefore it's really good for the seed, and so it's very quick. It helps it grow very quick. So that works really well. And the other 85% is then given at the moment to the likes of Crusaders, Garden Ways, and they're now putting it into fertilisers, and that's where it's been, or compost, and that's how it's getting used. So on average, 6.5 tonnes of GIB board is delivered per house. That's working on about an average of about 200 square metre floor area of a house, single story. Canterbury region alone supplies 20,000 tonnes of GIB plasterboard per year. Admittedly, and forgive me, that figure was back in 2010. So our building consents that we have now are a little bit more, so that figure is, I would suggest conservatively, would probably be sitting at about 28 to 30,000 tonnes. At 10% wastage, which is a little bit hedgy on whether that's the correct waste. My experience tells me that if we were to utilise the sheet sizes of plasterboard that we have in the market, our wastage factor would be sitting at around about 7%, but a lot of the group housing companies in there actually just use one sheet size of a 4.8 or a 6 metre length, and they cut whatever's left behind, they throw away. They're getting a 17% wastage factor, but they think it's a lot quicker, so they're not worried about that extra wastage. To me, that doesn't make sense. It's just throwing away money. So working on as you probably have read this before I've even got to it, but so as you can see here, the problem that we would have in collecting, if we could generate 20,000 tonnes of waste, if we have 50 weeks a year with 12 full-time trucks collecting plasterboard from site every day of that 50 weeks, we can only bring back 1,700 tonnes. We're still short quite a lot. So that's one thing that we've got to think about. Well, amongst many other things. So the importance of being prepared, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We've, as I said, this trial was back in 2010. We have a group together now full of senior management as well as middle management. There's about 8 of us on that panel, and we are continually looking at the recovery of our plasterboard and what we can do better. In that production of that new, in the manufacture of that new plant in Auckland, we will be able to put recycled gypsum back into our own manufacturing process. At the moment we can't, because there's too little of it. You have to be a really big major player to be able to, globally, to be able to do that. Overseas, a company, I'll start again, we produce 30 million square metres of plasterboard per year throughout New Zealand. In comparison to an American company or a European company, they could be producing somewhere in the vicinity of 80 million, 110 million square metres a year. They put 20% back of their recycled product back into their manufacturing process because it's economically viable to do so. Unfortunately, when we produce the smaller quantities that we do here, we haven't yet got that economics worked out yet. But what we can see is that this will happen over time. As markets, councils, us realise the importance of recycling, then it will come back through legislation, and we will be ready to react when that time comes. And I think that takes me through to the end. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. And yeah, I particularly like the story about waste. You know, with the journey that we're on with the Superhome movement, we're learning every day, and it's interesting that GIB is progressing, and we just seem to be getting closer together with what we're talking about and what we're actually doing. So, Superhome movement, we're really big on walking the talk. A lot of people talk about sustainability, and a lot of it is just talk. You know, we're quite sort of connected with brands, and we see what actually happens. So every 4 years they do a housing quality survey, and I just talked to someone recently there, and they confirmed that still 98% of homes are built to the sustainability level of the New Zealand Building Code. So, you know, I know it's kind of like we're preaching to the choir here, because you guys are here because you want to know about what we're talking about, but your colleagues that aren't here, a lot of them are just giving it lip service, and they're not actually walking the talk, and that is a really important thing. You know, it's all very well to declare a climate emergency, but what are we actually following up with, and what actions are we taking? So, Superhome movement is really big on doing real stuff from the ground up and showing that, you know, and you know, a lot of you have already heard about our tours that we do, and leading by example and showing people what a superhome should be. So just on that, it's an exciting time. You know, we're close to launching a superhome design guide, and we've got some support to do that. Now we've been working on that for a long time. So with that, you know, I know there's a number of participants here. I'm asking for feedback, and we're probably going to use the format of on the website. There's the categories for and there's sort of who, why starts with why. Everything starts with why, and who are the participants, and then how. And the Superhome Design Guide is really a development of that how section. So we're going to be calling on all of our participants to contribute to that, and all of the companies that do those various categories. So I'll keep going. So for the first time last year, we did the Superhome virtual tours, and we're developing that in conjunction with Becca. And that's going to be that's exciting too. So that's going to be an educational virtual tour rather than a photographic one. Currently on the website, the homes last year, you can do a photographic 3D. There's a 3D capture being done, and you can look through the homes. But our next development on that is to have little hotspots and embed information about the various design features and products, and that's quite exciting. So that's work in progress. So, you know, I know there's quite a few designers here. If you've got a house that you're proud of, that you want to be on a tour, just let us know, because the challenge with the Superhome tours is sort of, it's a bit like herding cats, just getting the houses all at the right time. And clients and owners that are willing to have thousands of people come through their house, so that's a challenge. So why? You know, I think brands recently released a research project. They've been researching carbon emissions of our homes, and our homes, even new homes built to code, produce 5 times the amount of carbon that they should if we want to meet the Paris Agreement 1.5 degrees warming. And you know, a lot of it just needs more thought, and that's very true with the waste story. You know, we found that when we did our 10-star home back 4.5 years ago, it wasn't too difficult to just have the conversation at the start. And we didn't have a skip on site. We just said we'll separate out the waste, and we had to weigh everything that left the site, and it had to be less than 10 kilograms per square metre of floor area of the house to leave the site, and it wasn't difficult to achieve that. And if you think about it, everything that you throw away, like Richard suggested, you've purchased it, so you're just throwing away money. And you know, with Dan, with what he's doing with Ecopanel, making it off-site, there is no waste. So you're not purchasing product, cutting, having off-cuts, and then throwing stuff. It's throwing money in the bin, basically. And so that's another side of it, is financially just an intelligent thing to do, as well as avoid things going to landfill. So, you know, Greta Thunberg, she says, our house is on fire. And we really need to start acting as though our house is on fire, and taking measures now that are bold, audacious, and start doing things that are a lot different to what current, what business as usual is right now. And you know, I don't think there's too many people that think climate change is a hoax anymore, but even if they do, what's the downside? You know, we're going to have clean rivers, we're going to have healthy children, we're going to have less fuel poverty, less child poverty. You know, it's all intrinsically linked, and housing has a big part to play. You know, if we all lived in healthy homes, a lot of the other social issues and economic issues would be would go away, or would be lessened to a greater degree. So this is what I was talking about before. You know, the website. It's been a long time coming, but in the background, each one of these topics has a page or more behind it, and with the development of the Superhome Design Guide, we're going to see that information publicly available. So it's an important thing just to share this information. I don't think you should have to pay for information, because it's too important. We just need to get that out there for people. So now we've got, this is probably going to be released very shortly, but we've got an events calendar for this year, which Yvette has created. I call it the Yvette calendar, the events calendar. But so this year there's a lot planned, and we're trying to do more tours. We're trying to do industry. We will be doing industry tours more frequently. They're just wonderful days, and they're very popular. So it's 50 people hop on a bus and travel around a handful of homes. We have lunch in the middle of the day. We have some really good presentations and conversations along the way, and so it's only 50 people because 50 people fit on a bus. In the future we might have 2 buses, and we might have them, we're going to soup up the bus tours and have maybe one bus has homeowners and the consumers on, one bus has the industry folk. So to date most of it has been the people that are interested in the industry, the designers, the builders, the suppliers, and also some people like people from the council, people from brands and the Green Building Council, those sort of people on the industry tours. But I really see that as a kind of a way of having a mobile kind of mini conference. And so we might have a keynote speaker at lunchtime, and we might have a different topic at each house where you hear from an expert about ventilation or windows or whatever the topic might be. And then, the idea of being out and about and looking at beautiful homes and homes under construction as well, and learning how things go together. It's a lot better than sitting in a dark room looking at a projector screen and looking, instead of looking at case studies of slides of a house, you can actually visit the house. And I really think you see about 10% of what a house is about by looking at photographs. You really need to visit the house. So, we'll be doing more of that throughout the country. And so we've probably got about, 25 designers, architects in Christchurch, probably about the same amount of builders, and we're starting to get more and more people join throughout the country. So what's the point of joining? Well, it's really about learning and sharing ideas, and the more you participate, the more you get out of it. And that's really important. So, some people want to join to get the Superhome logo on their website, which is fine too, but you get the most out of it by being involved. It's like anything in life. And so we've called it participants rather than members for that reason. The more you participate, the more benefit that you'll get from it, and the more you'll learn. So another thing we're doing is we're starting, because we've got people all around the country, we're starting training online. So monthly sessions, webinar type format. So there'll be the opportunity to log into that if you're a participant, and there might be an interview with some key person, and then there'll be an opportunity to join the conversation and ask questions and share ideas as well. So that is monthly, so I don't know, how many people here are on Facebook? How many people use LinkedIn? Oh yeah, so LinkedIn's good. We are quite active there, sharing information, our information, but also information from around the world. So if you link with us on LinkedIn or Facebook, that's probably a good thing, and it's definitely a good thing. And I don't know if my phone is over there, but if you go to your phone and you click on the little man symbol, you can actually open it so all the people in this room, we can see who's here, and you can link if you want to do that, if you're brave enough to do that. But so that's quite a good tool. What haven't I talked about? Maybe that's enough. Maybe we'll just open the floor for questions, and I'll shoulder tap a few people to come up here and join me. And does anyone have any questions right now? So, Superhome, $500 to join, $500 a year. If you're a national company, it's $1,000. If you just want to support the Superhome movement and you don't have a company and you're not really interested in promoting yourself online or on the website, then you can be a supporter, and that starts at $80. Or there is the opportunity now to donate so that you can support what we're doing and via the website and just choose the amount, whatever. So that's probably all from me. I've probably forgotten a whole bunch of things to talk about because we've got so many ideas. The more support we get, the more ideas we can implement. Yeah, that's probably it for now, and we'll have a few questions. I'm sure you've all written down some really challenging questions during the break. And welcome, Julie. Do you want to join us in the panel? Because, yeah, I'm sure you've got some interesting things to talk about. Okay.
Who else?
So we've got Dan and Jen and Richard. How about we invite Martin Riley? Because Martin's, no, he's too shy. Okay. Martin's an important person because he was there right at the beginning and helped create the Superhome movement. But we'd be remiss not to invite Tony because Tony has been such a huge advocate for sustainability in Christchurch City, and we're so lucky to have him. Or maybe Tony can chime in from the floor.
Test.
Yeah. Do you want to move forward, everybody?
I have a microphone here, the corner. If you want to come on forward. So let's have a nice conversation. Face to face, person to person.
If you want to grab another drink, you can do that.
If you have a question, please put your hand up and I'll bring the mic to you so everyone can hear the question. Even if you've got a loud voice, there is a bit of a background noise in the room, so it's easy to hear the questions if you're using a mic.
I've got a question for Dan. Your CLT that you're bringing in from the CLT that you're bringing in from Austria. Where are you using that as opposed to the stuff that's coming from Nelson? And how would you? Because you mentioned the Nelson LVL.
Yes.
And so.
Well, sorry, it's Australian. Oh, hang on, sorry.
So you got the LVL
Yes.
and the CLT. So where's the CLT being used in your panels?
Okay, so the CLT is mainly for roof structure and floor structures. The LVL makes up our framework for our wall panels.
Right.
So you can use CLT as wall panels, but you can't use the GLT or PLT, depending on what abbreviation we use. You can't use that for wall panels because of the structure. So they only come as 600 to 1200 wide panels. So yeah, so the Nelson Pine LVL is our framework for our Ecopanels, and the CLT and PLT are floor and wall and roof structures, just depending on the design.
Yeah. And how does the carbon miles of getting that stuff over from Austria, how does that sort of sit against locally sourced materials?
Well, some of the locally sourced materials now, or the CLTs and stuff, are actually made and they've moved their plant to Australia. So people are shipping in all sorts of products, but because we've aligned with a company that has got such a good history or sustainability record and stuff with what they do, how they produce their panels, the zero wastage, everything's recycled. They're producing so much more power than they're using, so that's why we do it. And the cost to land it as well is very encouraging.
If I may add on that, because I used your CLT, right, from Austria. I've done the carbon analysis of it, and then so I imported like 64. I imported 24 tons of timber of CLT. The whole house is made with it, and then 64 tons of CO2 were stored in the panels. And importing the panels from Europe was only 4 tons released with the 4 trucks and the boat. The main thing is when you think about a shipping boat, you're actually sharing the CO2 emissions with the other 1,000 containers that on that boat. So you're not really releasing that much. And then to give you an idea, I had on the house, I think you had a picture of it, yeah? We've got 4 massive portal frames on that design that were made here, and then they were producing as much CO2 as importing the CLT from Europe. So yeah, it's worth doing the calculation.
Julie, you know, hold on to the microphone for a second. Sorry, maybe just it'd be quite good to get a sense of what you do, who you are, what you offer.
Absolutely. Sorry, I missed the beginning of the meeting. I was busy somewhere else. But I am Julie. I'm your eco design advisor from the council, and I work for free, and I provide free advice on home design. So it's a 2-hour free consultation you can get with me. We sit down usually at the cafe because I'm a coffee addict, and then I'll have a look at your plans and then make some comments on the thermal envelope, the orientation, the layout, the building techniques, and then heating, ventilation, all the questions you can have. We can find what's the best for you according to your budget. So that's what I do, and I need to be busy, so feel free to jump on the council website and then book me.
Can I just add that you offer your service for free, but actually the ratepayers of Christchurch should pay for it. So you've already paid for it, you might as well use it. There we go. Okay, any other questions? Other questions? Can I pose a question? Oh, there's one over here. Okay.
Juliet, do you extend that beyond homeowners to design?
Sorry, absolutely. Yeah, designers, builders, companies who wants to do better. I had a meeting last week with the company who is doing timber windows here in Lyttelton, and they just wanted to do better details, and then we're working together to make that happening. So yeah, absolutely. Companies, homeowners, everyone. It is for everyone. Including council employees.
Okay, am I allowed a question? I have a question. These sessions here, you know, today our topic was walls and panel systems. So just throwing it out there, what topics are most of interest to you guys? I know we've done windows in the past. We're thinking ventilation and insulation could be a really good one.
So do you want to show of hands? Maybe ask, do you want to show of hands what topics and then get them to put their hands up?
Okay, so we've already got a plan to do a national tour doing the superstructure, just looking at the whole thermal envelope of the building, not just the walls and floor and roof, but the windows and the air tightness and insulation, everything, the whole how you put it all together. And so that's coming. But over and above that, I was thinking, how many people would be interested in ventilation as a topic? Okay, so that's almost everybody. So the more our houses get airtight, the more we have to think about ventilation, so that we've got air to breathe.
Should ventilation and heating actually be together?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe we a bit like we're doing with the sort of structure and the fabric of the building, we look at the maybe ventilation, heating, insulation, we put it all together. And you know, so I think air quality inside our homes is about sort of 5 to 10 times as bad as the air quality outside, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's really important that we have good ventilation, and that's one of the things that's missing from the building code. There is no requirement for ventilation.
Can I add a comment? You're absolutely correct. Ventilation and heating are a couple that should match together. So if you're heating with a heat pump, for example, you're heating the air. So it's really important that your house is actually more airtight because you don't want to lose that heat. But if you're heating a house with radiators or a log burner or underfloor heating, you're actually heating the object and not the air as the primary source of heating. So being airtight in that case is not really that important. So the heating system strategy you will choose should be coordinated with the ventilation system you want to have with your house. Absolutely. If it makes sense.
Bob, I find that with super homes and particularly airtight buildings, a lot of people with super home buildings and particularly airtight buildings and your Ecopanels, a lot of people want to be on board with it, but they don't have the awareness that they want a half or a 3/4 system, and the requirement for the ventilation is important, because you make the building airtight, and then when they pull back on the ventilation, you've given yourself more issues than not making it airtight in the first place. So I think that it's really worth getting awareness out there on the importance of ventilation when you do an airtight building.
Yeah, I think, you know, it goes hand in hand. It's really important. You know, if you look at the passive house standard, it's a mandatory requirement to have a mechanical ventilation system, which is also a heat recovery, energy recovery system. And, you know, I've been interested in passive house for many years and attending their conferences and things, but it's only in the last few months that people have actually started asking for passive houses. So we've got 4 passive houses that are on the go at the moment. And, you know, that is the kind of gold standard for energy efficiency and airtightness. And, you know, so going forward, all homes will need to have, or all homes should have a blower door test to test their airtightness. And that's really an indication of how good the build quality is, how airtight the home is. And, you know, I've said it many times, but there's kind of two sides to airtightness. One is like Julie's saying, you know, you're not throwing away heat. You know, you're paying to heat the air, and if it's got 10 air changes per hour instead of less than 1, that's 10 times the amount of energy you're having to use to heat the building. But also there's the issue of moisture and condensation occurring in the building, but also within the construction. And how are you keeping the building dry and getting the moisture out? Because humans emit moisture, and a lot of it. You know, 2 people in a bedroom, and the windows have got condensation on the you guys got dirty ones. Yeah, the windows have got condensation on them in the morning. You know, that's coming out of your breath, out of the people, and then there's the cooking and the showering and all the things that you do in the house. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Julie talks about systems thinking and about the whole house being a system and everything kind of being interrelated. And that's a really good way of thinking about it. So, you know, you need to think of a home as a series of systems that are all working together, a super system. Do you want to talk about that, Jim?
Oh, okay.
Or have we got another question?
Yeah, do we have another question?
Are you interested in solar and solar heating at all? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. And in terms of another workshop, I think there's a story to be told around solar.
Yeah.
And I think at the moment New Zealand has the wrong story about solar, because the rest of the world, solar uptake is increasing, you know, like 90% per year. And New Zealand government particularly, kind of not really promoting solar. So, and they tend to say that it doesn't stack up, and it's not, you know.
It's not true.
But yeah, it's not true, and you need to look at how you use the solar energy, not just what you get when you feed it back for ridiculously small amount of money to the power company, which is how they kind of calculate it. But anyway, that's a whole other story, and I think it's worth investigating that story.
So can we pose that question before? How many hands up who would like to talk about renewable energy, which is pretty much the topic we're just. So that's that.
Yeah. So we've got ventilation, insulation, heating. We've got renewable energy. That includes wind actually, because when the sun's not shining, it's quite often windy.
What about water use and because that often doesn't get talked
Yeah.
about. We talk about the envelope and everything.
Yeah.
We've got
Well, maybe we talk about renewable and natural resources and include that as well. But yeah, that would be a couple of really good workshops. Are there any other thoughts?
We have a thought or a question?
Just a thought. I'm just wondering because when you're talking about Superhome, to me that means a home that's going to last and for the long term. So with our circumstance in New Zealand with movement, do you ever look into trying to understand better foundations with earthquakes in mind and exterior cladding and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Damien's sort of putting his hand up at the back of the room there. So Damien is CGW engineers, and they're I think he's also a GTEC engineer, eh? Yeah. So anyway, so it all starts with the ground, and we've learned that after the earthquakes in Christchurch, and how, you know, there's a myriad of different foundation options now.
Yes.
But
It's very confusing for a person who's wanting to build a home.
yeah,
Because I talk to people and I get different answers.
yeah.
Come and see me.
Yeah, so Damien might do, if I twist his arm, he might do a talk on, when we do talk about superstructure and we talk about the foundations and the, you know, what I was talking about, everything, and the whole kind of envelope of the building. We might get Damien to talk to us about the foundations and the floors and structurally. But just on that, I meant to mention Quakestar tonight and I didn't. It was, I included it in my slides so that it would remind me, and then it didn't remind me. But so someone recently, someone recently asked me for a 5-star Quakestar rated home, and I said, yep, I can help with that. And so they were a couple that had left Christchurch after the earthquake refugees to Wellington. They've been living in Wellington for 8 years. They're now returning to Christchurch and they want to build a forever home, a home that they're going to live in for the rest of their lives. And they want it to be 10-star Homestar, they want it to be 5-star Quakestar, they want it to be Lifemark, and they just want it. And the refreshing thing is, it's a modest size home, but they just want a really good home. And they see the value in doing it so that it will have longevity and stand the test of the time and be able to stand up to natural disasters. So I actually put that into the Quakestar tool, which was really easy. It took me about probably a little over an hour. It's just a single story home, but that's there. It's been developed, it's available to be used. There is an online tool where you can put homes into there. And you know, the process is a little bit like thinking about easy brace when you're working out the bracing for your house. You just got to think about where the walls are and what they're made out of. So using Ecopanel, we got that house to be a 5-star Quakestar house, which is the best. And and without the, you know, because we've got the ply on the outside, without that it was a 4-star. So the Quakestar, it's not difficult, and it's for the designers and the room. It's easy, and therefore it's cheap, and you can offer that to your clients who are interested in that. You know, people that have had bad experiences through the earthquakes, they'll be interested in that. They'll want to know how's this house going to perform in an earthquake. So that's an idea that I had after the earthquakes, and it's been developed by a guy called Dr. David Hopkins, who's an earthquake engineering guru. And it's been firstly developed for commercial buildings, but more recently for residential homes. And so you can freely use that. You know, it's in its beta form, so any feedback is welcome. But it's there to be used for people that are interested in earthquake resilience of buildings. And you know, that we need to start thinking more and more about longevity, resilience. You know, how's it going to perform in a storm event too? Rising sea level, flooding, that sort of thing. These are all important issues that we face with a changing climate and a changing world. And you know, I don't know, I'm a bit I'm damaged by the earthquake experience, but you know, we can't rely on insurance companies to come to our aid a lot of the time.
Can I just ask a question on behalf of the normal sort of people here, the non-professionals, and that is that you've just mentioned a whole lot of different tools. There was Lifemark, there was the Living Building Challenge, Homestar, you know, you've just mentioned Quakestar. Is it possible to get a quick pricing on some of these? Because people are starting to think about, I'm about to build a house, what should I be asking for? What are the things that I need to ask my builder for? And those tools can give some guidance.
Yeah, so, I mean, book a session with Julie would be the first thing that I would suggest, because it's free. And she's a Homestar assessor. I think Homestar, it's all good ideas, but it is really expensive to get a rating because it's really time consuming. So, you know, it's not for everyone, and there's, you know, it hasn't had a lot of uptake. But I think your question, Tony, just hits to the heart of the there's a lot to think about when doing a good home. And it's not necessarily about going after all the ratings, it's about getting the right people involved, and that's where Superhome comes along. If you get the right designer, right builder on board, then that goes a long way. Whether you do home style, whether you do passive house or green living building challenge, whatever it is, talking to the right people will mean that they've already done the legwork, they've already done the research, they already know what needs to be done, and that's really important. LifeMark, by the way, is about accessibility and adaptability, and not just for elderly people with mobility issues, but for everyone, ergonomics. And I think that should be mandatory. It should just be part of the building code, because it's not expensive to do that, and it's just a lot of good stuff that makes a lot of common sense.
I had a really quick example to give you, like to tell you how important is it to have a really good team. I received a phone call yesterday by a distressed customer, and she was like, I don't know what to do. I'm in the middle of my build, and then I want recessed windows. My builder wants to do it, and my designer doesn't want to make the detail. And then she was like, I don't know what to do. I really want it, and then my designer is just like, this is not happening. And then so we found a solution to, make it happening. But it's so important to have someone on board with your. Yeah, no comment. But yeah. Well, the builder is the key thing here.
Yeah.
But it's really important to build trust and have and be surrounded by people you can actually trust along the way. It's so important because you can achieve so much more with a good team. That's it.
Any other questions? Just put your hand up. We'll pass the mic to you. Yep.
I'll throw one there. Maybe another topic that can be discussed is costing, because obviously at the end of the day, everyone wants to know how things cost. We can drive these things as much as possible, but if we go down a path of all the suggestions, then we end up at a construction cost that's 20% over budget at the end, then everyone gets upset. Time's wasted, and so on.
Yeah. I think that the biggest impediment to innovation and doing better is the fear that it's going to be too expensive and it's going to cost more. A lot of things like GIBFix, for example, it should cost less. So there's a lot of ideas that don't cost more. Recessing the windows, for example, that's going to give you 20 to 30% better thermal performance. It's not going to cost you 30% more to recess your windows. It's going to cost a fraction more. To get to the gold standard, passive house, research shows it's about 15% more, but is that 15% more of a standard building code house? Is that an architectural house, or is that what is that? So it's a little bit kind of up in the air, but the way I approach cost with my clients and the way we've designed the Superhome standards and the Superhome guide, which will hopefully be available to everybody soon, is there's 3 levels. So there's good, better, best. And if you're on a tight budget, you can decide, well, maybe I can't afford the best, but good is still a hell of a lot better than the building code, and better is in the mid-range. So you need to talk to people about prioritising things, and maybe the envelope of the building definitely needs more priority than the bling, the finishes, the fittings, and that sort of thing. So it's about priorities, and it's about getting the best you can, and you can't skimp on design. The biggest thing that's marginalised in New Zealand home construction is design, because people just say, okay, I don't want to pay for a designer, I'll design it myself, or I'll just pick a plan out of a book, and they end up with 20, 30-year-old building techniques and technologies, and they're really just selling themselves short. Because this is why we've got stuck in our tracks and there's no innovation, and we are 20 years, 30 years behind, because design is marginalised. And
can I just chime in there quickly? Simple thing, put stuff into buildings that you can't add in later. So very hard to add polystyrene insulation to your foundation after your foundation's down, especially under it. Yeah, pretty hard to add pipes for underfloor heating later. So if you can't afford the full noise underfloor heating system, stick the pipes in the slab. It's not expensive. Yeah, go for the extra insulation in the walls. You can go for a cheap Bunnings kitchen, and 10 years down the track, put a nicer kitchen. 10 years is probably time to redo your kitchen anyway. So concentrate on those things that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, and those are the things that you can't retrofit later. Would be my advice.
Yeah. Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, everybody, and I look forward to the next opportunity to have one of these sessions.
Can we thank our panelists, please? Thank you very much. If you're wanting to leave, somebody will have to let you out. So don't be in too much of a rush to leave this room, because you won't be able to get out the rest. So just give us a minute.